Friend of the Soul, Eden McAdam, here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting in over 750 stations on Pacifica and NPR stations, Low Power FM, college and community radio stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations, and both TV satellite networks, Dish Network, Channel 9415, Free Speech TV, 9410 Link TV, and on DirecTV, Channel 375. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Our headlines are also available in Spanish for any radio station to take. Just go to our website as well at democracynow.org. Juan?
Well, almost everything we now do on a regular basis, from sending emails, taking photographs, writing text messages, calling on our cell phones, downloading music, typing on our computers, and using our credit and ATM cards, all of it generates information. Each bit of this information can be captured, digitized, retrieved, copied, and sent anywhere on Earth in an instant. And every single day, the endless information generated by our ever-expanding digital footprints is recorded, tracked, searched through, sold, analyzed, and saved forever. Some might call this hyper-networked digital explosion and its potential for collaboration and innovation a kind of utopia. But others warn that it also raises important concerns about privacy, identity, freedom of expression, accountability, and the future of democracy. They argue that our digitized world might actually be closer to the dystopias imagined in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World or George Orwell's 1984.
The only difference, as our next guest points out in his latest book, is that unlike the world of Orwell's 1984, we have, quote, fallen in love with this always-on world and accept our loss of privacy in exchange for efficiency, convenience, and small price discounts. Harry Lewis is our guest, the former dean of Harvard College. He's the author, along with Hal Abelson and Ken Ledeen, of a new book that explains how the digital revolution is changing our world more profoundly than we could ever imagine. It's called Blown to Bits: Your Life, Liberty, and Happiness After the Digital Explosion. Harry Lewis joins us now here in our Firehouse studio. He is a fellow at the Berkman Center for Internet and Society at Harvard. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Professor Lewis.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, you walk into a store, and we see it increasingly, these video screens that, you know, are projecting ads at us.
Yes, and the thing you don't expect and don't realize is that some of them actually have little cameras in there, and they will have enough intelligence behind the camera to recognize your gender, your ethnicity, and to show you ads that are appropriate to you, which is maybe a wonderful thing and maybe a not so wonderful thing. And why should I see ads for skin products that are meant only for people who have different complexion than I do? It's more efficient. It's a wonderful marketing tool and all the rest of that. But there's something a little strange about the fact that the screen is, without your realizing it, actually capturing your image.
So what does it do with that image?
Well, we don't know. This is just a fairly recently released technology, and we don't really know how it's being used. Are those images being saved? These are the kinds of questions that you need to ask about any new technology. What happens to the data? Does it get saved away? There was a time not that long ago where that would have been a silly question, because there was no way that any store could afford to pay for all of this disk storage that would be needed to save the images. But one of the things that's happened over the recent times is it's now possible to save absolutely everything and to analyze it.
And the willingness of people to give up so much of their privacy. As a reporter, sometimes I'm amazed whenever now we have a major story breaking in our newsroom. The first thing some reporters do is, let's see if that person has a Facebook page.
Of course.
And I'm amazed at the number of people, including major figures, who voluntarily give up so much of their information in these social networks.
The latest Facebook craze is 25 random things about me, where you're supposed to put 25 facts about yourselves and then send it to 25 people and ask them to reciprocate, which is a wonderful marketing ploy for Facebook, of course, because if you don't have a Facebook account, of course, you want to sign up and get one so that you too can share 25 random things about you. We love sharing information about ourselves. Just a couple of days ago, Google announced its Latitude app, which is a thing that will enable you to share with your friends your location all the time and them to share their location with you. Not the first such application, but because Google's behind it, this one will get a lot of play. So there is a seductive quality to the fact that we are so willing to give up information about ourselves. And this is combined with all of the ways where the situations where we don't realize that we're giving up information about ourselves and producing vast floods of information.
Okay, I'm closing my cell phone right now. I'm
Yes.
turning it off.
Yes.
Am I turning it off?
Well, if you're not doing anything on which the federal authorities might have an interest in your doing, you're probably okay if it's off. But one of the interesting things that I discovered in the course of writing this book was that since the cell phones have buggy software in them all the time. Of course, there are ways to upgrade the software. You want them to be able to do that. Well, under the appropriate court orders, the federal authorities, the FBI or whatever, can have new software installed in your cell phone unbeknownst to you, so that the off button, the thing that makes the screen go black and say bye-bye, does all that, but actually leaves the microphone on and relaying everything that it's hearing from the ambient noise, your conversations and so on, to the authorities. That's been done, and evidence of that kind has been introduced in court cases, and, you know, assuming it's been captured with proper court orders, it can be done.
So they're listening to you.
They're listening. It's a roving bug. It used to be if you were an FBI agent.
You're carrying your microphone around.
It used to be we're so helpful because, you know, it used to be dangerous work to go plant a bug somewhere so you could listen in on the conversation of a mob figure or something like that. Now all you've got to know is their cell phone number, and then you can get the court order to get the cell phone company to turn your own cell phone into a roving bug.
Medical records. One of the key components now of the president's new stimulus plan is this investment in the computerization, further computerization of Americans' medical records. Is that's a job creator, but is it good for us?
This is a very complicated, very confused subject, because on one hand, you know, it is true that it's ridiculous for one hospital to have to rekey all of the same information that another hospital has already keyed in, or if you go visit a doctor in one place, that because of data format incompatibilities and so on. On the other hand, you know, there are huge privacy implications, and there already are very strict privacy laws relating to medical information, but frankly, they sometimes are so strict that they get actually in the way of epidemiological studies and so on that are of the public benefit. You know, something like the Framingham Heart Study, which is really the foundation on which you know, people your age and mine have not suffered heart failure. I hope it's not true of you. It is true of me, as it was not true of my father. You know, this study would be very hard to reproduce today because the privacy standards are actually so high. That's one of the interesting things about the privacy issue, is that even the technology changes so fast that even our most well-intentioned efforts to legislate to protect it sometimes have perverse consequences. I mean, if I can switch into a different story for a moment, there's a very interesting case with which we actually open the book of a poor woman outside of Seattle who a couple of years ago had her car rolled into a ravine. She drove off the highway. She couldn't be found for a week, and eventually the police located her because she had her cell phone on her, and until it died.
This is the story of Tanya Ryder.
Tanya Ryder. Until it died, it was, you know, as cell phones do, notifying the nearby cell phone towers of its location so that your cell phone can receive incoming calls. And but when her husband walked into the police station, or called them and said, you know, my wife's didn't come home last night, please find her, the privacy laws in Washington State, in every well-intentioned progressive impulse to protect women's privacy, had been written in such a way that it was impossible for the police to quickly access the records because, reasonably enough, if a husband walks into a police station and says, "I can't find my wife, please find her for me," you know, the answer should not automatically be, "Sure, we'll track her down," right? So this was a case where the privacy laws, you know, they weren't quite right. They were well-intentioned, but they weren't quite right. Then these are the struggles that we're having.
And yet you write in the book that it was only when they decided that he was a suspect.
Yes, they actually had to. It was only when they placed him under suspicion of complicity in her disappearance that somehow her legal state changed to a point where the police could then access the records. And if he had nothing to do with it, it was just an accident. But if they continued to act on that assumption, you know, she might never have been found. She was barely alive when they did find her.
A week later.
But apparently she's okay, last I heard anyway.
I want to go back to finding your friends.
Yes.
So you can track your friends. You have to go more into this because obviously it means a lot of things. It means people can track you easily.
Well,